Greetings everybody, this is KyanPepper, and it's that time. Battlefield is coming back, and I have a few other videos planned, and I do apologize for taking forever on making content, but I have to put it aside to cover this biggie. Ever since the teasers dropped, Battlefield has been the talk of the town, and ever since the trailer and live gameplay were shown, Battlefield hype has reached a peak that hasn't been seen since they went back to the First World War. And after historic disappointment of 2042, and while Call of Duty's fanbase has been extremely divided and apathetic, EA has a lot on the line to make a truly epic Battlefield game. The question now is, did they do it? Well, let's find out together as we look at the Battlefield 6 beta. First things first, I got early access by watching a streamer to get a code.
This looks strangely familiar.
Because we've been here before.
Now, that's fine. I'm okay with muting a streamer for an hour while I go do something else, but however, when I put the code in, it came back as invalid.
This looks strangely familiar.
Because we've been here before.
However, after like an hour passed, it finally accepted my code, and I got early access to Battlefield 6. Still, that was dumb, and it's really funny that I ran into the same problem I had with Delta Force back in its alpha. Let's hope that's not a sign of what's to come. Once in, I got greeted with this goddamn Hulu menu again! Why are games launching with these? It looks terrible. Seriously, stop it. No one liked it when Modern Warfare 2 2022 did it, so why are other games following suit? It makes no sense. I mean, to be fair, Battlefield 2042 also had a somewhat similar layout when it first launched, and that was before Modern Warfare 2 2022. So I guess 2042 did more damage than we realized. And to be fair, the layout, despite being the stupid Hulu menu design, is pretty easy to use. I never really got lost in it, and it's easy to understand, and probably easier on controller than it is on PC, if I have to guess. In the main menu, you have access to customize your class and your weapons, and you can use the guns that you customize in the shooting range, and you get to see and test these beautiful guns. And that leads us nicely to the weapon customization, which I really like how they handled it this time around. There is some inspiration from COD's Gunsmith and Insurgency Sandstorm's customization. You see, you have a select number of points that you get to spend on each attachment, but each attachment has a different variable. So, like a red dot sight might have 10 points, while an ACOG might have 20 or 15. And if you grab too many expensive attachments, you might not be able to have enough to grab another attachment that you may want. You see, you have to try and balance it. This helps to make it where no gun can become too overpowered with just amazing attachments 24/7. I also like that they didn't make it to where you can just completely change a gun like you can in Call of Duty. Like an M4 stays an M4 rather than being able to turn into an M16 because you put on a longer barrel. But what's the point about talking about all these guns when we're not killing with them? Let's get to the fun part. Going into the multiplayer is an experience. I really don't know where to start. I think it's best to start with the gameplay. It is so damn good. The movement is exactly what it needs to be. It's not too fast, not too sluggish. There is no tac sprint, which honestly, at first I kind of wish they kept it, but then I kept playing the game and it was clear it wasn't needed. And playing 2042 also made that really clear. The gameplay also does feel a lot closer to the original Battlefield games, like Battlefield 4, with the same innovations from 5, having rolls and slides, which thankfully isn't abusable. One of my biggest concerns I and many other people had was that Battlefield 6 was going to push Battlefield into being a twitchy, overstimulated, ADHD-ridden pro shooter game in the same vein that Call of Duty has unfortunately become. But I am happy to say that is not the case at all. Doing things like sliding is very situational. You're not going to be sliding around breaking people's ankles, nor are you going to be seeing every single player adapt into such a terrible playstyle. In fact, Battlefield really isn't that sweaty at all. Don't get me wrong, there are going to be times where you'll find yourself eating shit from the dirt, but 90% of the time, at least in the beta, you won't be facing your stereotypical COD sweats jumping all around and bunny hopping. It's not practical in this game. You're more just going to get killed from people holding a building or a sniper or someone rushing with a shotgun, if anything, which I would take over slide canceling any day of the week. But that doesn't mean the gameplay is like Squad, where every movement you do feels penalized. You can play as aggressively as you want and do well. That's the thing, some people don't seem to get with Battlefield. There's a discourse online whether this game is too fast or too slow, and some people say it feels like COD? What? And some people say it's too slow, but they're kind of in the minority, so I'm not going to give that too much attention. But anyone saying Battlefield 6 feels like COD and is too fast, all I have to say is you clearly never played any of the good Battlefield games. Battlefield has always been a fast-paced shooter game. Yes, not to the same extent as Call of Duty, but still fast-paced. When the beta's first weekend concluded, I went back to Battlefield 4, and it was really fun, but I noticed immediately how aggressive that game is. Positioning matters a lot, sure, that much is true, but it still is one of the many elements Battlefield has. Playing aggressively and getting into your enemies' faces was pretty common in Battlefield 4, mainly depending on the maps of course, but even the bigger maps allowed you to play aggressively or defensively as you want. As long as you were being useful to your team, a slow or fast-paced fighting style was very much welcome. We already stated that you can't do the same abusive movements you can do in COD. So if you think, this game plays fast, so it's like COD, I'm sorry, you sound insanely silly. Now moving on, there are some returning and new weapons. It's kind of a difficult part of the game to talk about since DICE did such a really good job this time around, with maybe some odd choices here and there. You got a sword rifle, carbines, SMGs, LMGs, a sniper, a shotgun, and a pistol. One thing I noticed really quickly was that guns kick a lot more compared to the older games. Now, in the original games, they weren't exactly laser beams or anything, at least not in my hands, but they had really soft recoil and floating animation patterns. If anything, it was more of the bullet bloom you were fighting over, say, the recoil. While in Battlefield 6, I dare to say the guns feel more like in Modern Warfare 2019. Now, that's not a bad thing. If there's anything I want Battlefield to copy from Call of Duty, it would be how the weapons feel. I might be in the minority, but I never liked how the weapons in the older Battlefield games felt. They always felt floaty to me, like it's your guy playing with a toy gun and he's faking recoil. I don't know why that's the impressions I get, it just is. The guns were just lacking that kind of kick that felt needed. The only games I feel like did a better job with this was Battlefield 1's weapon and, God forgive me, Battlefield 2042. Look, don't get me wrong, it still feels really clunky, and Battlefield 6 feels way better in comparison. Where was I? Oh, right. Battlefield 6's weapons feel closer to Modern Warfare 2019's weapons, and to me, that's a closer step in the right direction. Anyways, the guns are really good, all having their respective roles, and they stand out from each other so far. No gun feel like they were just copy and pasted over. Usually, the way that the guns feel is that the guns that are lower damage are easier to control, while the guns that are harder hitting require a bit more mastery. See how easy that is to do, Delta Force? Reason they got the recoil balancing completely backwards. Now, explain to me, viewer, why does a M4 or an M249 SAW have harder to control recoil than a Scar H and a PKM? Seriously, I am not joking. Two guns that are world-renowned for being easy to control need every attachment to be geared towards controlling it. You need to be eating clown ass through a straw to come to the idea that a heavy caliber weaponry is somehow easier to control. But there are admittedly some balancing oddities, like with the M4. Why is it always the M4? For example, due to the high cyclic rate of the M4, they decided to make it a harder to control gun so you can't just beam people. Honestly, fair enough, that's a pretty justifiable reason. But I swear to God, they gave it the worst bloom possible. Now, to be fair, there is a bloom glitch that's going around where sometimes, for whatever reason, your gun just gets really intense bloom no matter what. If you're standing still, crouching, whatever it may be that you're doing, the gun just won't hit its target until you slide, which is really weird. So maybe that's what's happening, but at the same time, the M4 is renowned for its accuracy, being able to reliably strike a target over 500 meters. So how is it that I can struggle to hit people at pretty medium range, assuming my aim is good, and yet I can use an MP7 to flat out shit all over a sniper? Something's not adding up here. That should not be possible. Yet here we are. It doesn't help that the MP7 is one of the easiest guns to use in the game, next to the AK-12. But this is just too much. I think it would really help if bloom was to be changed a little bit. I think it should stay most of the change, being affected by your movement and whether or not you're just spraying your gun, you know, like a maniac, but it should also be affected by your range, with the exception of being snipers, as you need to predict where the bullet is going. So if I'm trying to blast someone away with an SMG, and they're outside of my effective damage range, the bullet should start to deviate, so I can't just compete with snipers with a pistol if I wanted to. And if I'm told that that's how it already works, well, fuck me, why isn't it doing it? Another thing about the weapons that a lot of people seem to have a hate boner for is the shotguns. Which I kinda get, but I do think a lot of people are over-exaggerating. The shotguns in this game have a very long effective damage range, which is more realistic, and I don't really mind that it has range, because one, it's about 5 shots to kill a person at max range. You can easily just turn around and fucking blast them away if you had to. And two, with Battlefield having such open and big maps, you're going to need more range. You're not going to always be in people's faces. So I think it's a better balancing choice to give a shotguns a better purpose, even at long range. However, the shotguns do just dominate at close quarters. Sometimes they can be a bit finicky. There are times where I've shot people at pretty close range, and they kind of just shrugged it off. Oh well, fuck me, I suppose. But if your aim is good, and with a little bit of luck, you can wipe out a lot of people with a shotgun if you really have to. But some people hate the shotgun just so much, they're asking DICE to remove it. Look, there are a lot of dumb dramas with this game, and I really don't want to focus on a lot of it. Like, don't get me wrong, I will touch on it, but I really want to focus on my opinion, because I really like this game. But if you're asking for core weapons to be removed from the game, grow the fuck up. That would be like if I said, the MP7 is too powerful. DICE, remove SMGs. There's too many snipers on Liberation Peak. DICE, remove snipers. I don't like that I got killed by a tank. DICE, remove tanks. Did I get killed because the tank destroyed my cover because of destructible environments? DICE, remove destructible environments. That is so fucking entitled and stupid. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? No, that's not how it works. It's a core part of the game. They're probably just gonna nerf it, and that'll be enough. But overall, most of the weapons are pretty well balanced. I can't say they really have a meta gun, as it comes more to personal preferences. There is no gun that just stands out over the other that you have to use to compete. They're all really usable, and that is a really good sign. And overall, everything's looking pretty great so far. So what's not looking great? Alright, so real quick, I forgot to add a segment about bugs and glitches in the game, and it's not really too much to talk about, so I'm just going to record this off the bat with no script. So there's a few bugs that were present in the Battlefield 6 beta, one of which being like the usual, like the lights would start flaring and it would look kind of ugly from time to time. But that's not really too much to talk about. Another bug would have been the bullet bloom one that went over. But there's at least 2 bugs that I'm really worried about and I hope are not present for the full launch. That being one bug where the game would like reset itself, like kick you out of a server, and then it will just keep looping. Like at the title screen, it would just keep looping and looping and looping. That was really annoying, and I would have to turn the game off. Like, that's a pretty game-breaking one, but one is even worse, which is where I think if you exceed your like GPU limit or something, like if you try to put on a higher setting that your GPU might not be able to handle, eventually it will just delete your arms and your weaponry. So like you'll be running around with no guns, or you'll be running around with your gun but you have no arms. Then when you use another gun, this gun's not there, which is really annoying. And that's not too bad. I mean, hell, I went on a fucking killing spree with nothing more than an MP7 without my arms. Even managed to get a pistol kill without being able to see my pistol. Like, that's pretty good, except for the fact that when you try to quit the game or you try to leave, you can't leave. I have never seen a game have a glitch so bad it won't let you leave. I've never seen a game kidnap you like this. And that's pretty ridiculous. Now, again, it does, I do think they're going to fix it for the full release. I hope they fix it for the full release, because trapping your players into a game, and again, I was able to turn the game off by going into Steam and forcing it to shut down. But trapping your players into a game is not a glitch you want. That is really ridiculous. Anyways, let's go on to the other part. Sorry for interrupting this. On with the video. One of the oddest choices they made while making Battlefield 6 was not locking the weapons to classes, which is exceptionally bizarre. 2042 was hated for Well, a lot of reasons, but you could boil it down to at least 3. The maps were huge and barren, no one wanted the operator system, and the weapons weren't locked to class or specialists. So why would they try this again? Seems really stupid. They now have a playlist for closed weapons where you could keep some weapons locked to their classes and roles, similar to what Battlefield 4 or what even Delta Force does. And that was the only mode I really ever played, as it kept the game feeling more balanced and let me visually tell who my threats were. If I see someone in a ghillie suit, he probably doesn't have an LMG. And I noticed the open weapon game modes had way worse team play, as they were not tied down to the roles as tightly as they would be in closed weapons. I just don't get the point of making open weapons for Conquest and Rush or Breakthrough. Now, I did see someone on Twitter make a good point that having open weapons on the close quarter game modes like Squad Deathmatch and Domination would make sense. There's not a lot of teamwork for those smaller modes. I hope that when the game launches, they either keep it to the classic weapon loadout or at least make a permanent playlist or option to enable closed weapons. Well, that's that. What else is there to complain about? Well, that's probably going to be the maps. Don't get me wrong, they're not bad maps per se. I personally think they're all great. But it's very noticeable that 3 out of the 4 maps are extremely close quarters. Now, there are going to be more maps at launch, and they seem to be more open. But putting 3 high-octane maps where you're constantly getting into fights was a choice for the beta. We'll say that. I think that's one of the reasons a lot of people felt that the Battlefield 6 beta was too fast. It had nothing to do with the gameplay, but everything to do with the beta's map selections. It was just a poor choice to dump in 3 urban close quarters map. Again, they're not new to Battlefield, close quarters maps that is. It's just that that's all we had to play. So that's what our first impressions are. And first impressions matter a lot. So if you give players maps that are designed to be chaotic and fast, then players are going to think your game is overly chaotic and fast, which isn't really the story. If you play Liberation Peak, which is more open, has more verticality, and a shit ton of snipers, you'd say that that really isn't the case. Players want both Metro and Jailbreak type chaotic maps where you could just turn your brain off and shoot down a hallway and get a lot of kills, but they also want slower, bigger, more casual, vehicle-oriented maps too. Battlefield 6 is going to need both of these to succeed. You can't really leave either out, because if you do, you're going to disappoint a massive part of your fan base, because infantry and vehicle gameplay is the cornerstone of Battlefield, not one or the other. But besides that, the maps are really good, and they have a decent flow and choke point. I love how in Liberation Peak, there's this canyon area around C Flag, so you could try to like push through there, but there's probably going to be a shit ton of enemies there. So you're like trying to like use the rocks for coverage, you're shooting at them, and they're getting at all these different angles, and you're tossing grenades, and you get a tank to roll up, and then they start just pummeling it with RPGs, and you get engineers to get on it. But then if you go flank through the B flag, you could then try to make a big flank, but you have to take that flag. So then, they start taking it, then they make a flank to C, and then like you start taking C flag, and it's like a big thing. It's really cool. It's pretty cinematic. Like, it's definitely probably one of my favorite maps that they have. Stage of Cairo is also really good. The only real complaint I have was the rooftop exploiters, which leads to a problem about these maps, which is that they really reduce the distractions for the urban maps, which does make sense. It would kill your hardware if every single building could be leveled, but it also makes sure that there's always cover and you're not fighting in just constant rubble, and the maps keep their flow and they just don't dissolve into further chaos. I do understand why they did what they did. However, this does lead to the problem where maps destruction rise feel like a step back. Going back to say Battlefield 1, it was cool when someone would be in a building camping in it, and then you could just give them a big ol' fuck you and take down their house. Now, you can only do that in really Liberation Peak. But in the other maps, it does make your options feel more limited. Don't get me wrong, you still knock down walls and take away people's cover, and that's cool and all, but it's still just very limited. And I should be able to knock people off roofs, but nope, I can't. I can't just destroy the rooftops that they camp on. There's also a few other maps. The New York map is also really chaotic, with the indoors actually being really destructible. You could take down a lot of walls, and you can even take down floors to get like an advantage. That's really cool. So there's a lot of verticality that goes into that map. And there's also the other map. I can't remember either of their names right now, but they're really good maps. But that's besides the point. I just hope that when the full game releases and the seasons come out with it, that they add more variety with their maps and fix that goddamn exploit. Now, I can't really say much that's mechanically wrong with this game. Like I can say with, say, Battlefield 2042. I could tear down how horrible that game is gameplay-wise, but I can't really do that with Battlefield 6. It's really solid. However, there is one thing that sadly no developer can ever really fix. The migration of pro streamers or pro players.
Oh my god, getting snaked. Please, Battlefield players are like this.
I can't watch anymore.
I already alluded to this at the beginning of the video, and to be clear, if you're a COD or pro player or whatever it may be, and if you want to play Battlefield 6, the door is wide open, and I hope that you enjoy the game. However, if you're gonna come here and start whining and bitching that people want you to play the fucking game the way it's supposed to be played,
Bro, I'm not going there and resing you. I'm a COD player, bro. I ain't a medic. That's a waste of talent. But I mean,
and you start demanding developers to change the game to be more like Call of Duty,
I think Battlefield should have kill streaks. Thoughts, everybody?
Oh my gosh.
Chat, put a one in the chat if you want kill streaks in Battlefield 2 if you don't.
Shut the fuck up!
It's even worse when you know the team play mechanics of the game and refuse to do it because you want clips. Well, here's a newsflash. This isn't Fortnite. This isn't Call of Duty. This is Battlefield, a teamwork-oriented game. And if you're not playing as a teammate, you're just being a fucking detriment. And yes, I did reuse that joke. I apologize for ranting about this, but it really kills the enjoyment for me and so many other Battlefield fans. Seeing these greaseballs abuse exploits and just call it a movement skill gap, and then cry when everyone wants them gone. Because these overpaid morons just ruin everything they touch. Look at Call of Duty right now. It's an embarrassment. It could have been a really great game. It was going down a line that people were so excited to see. But they had to have added Warzone. These idiots had to have infested it, and now there's no turning back. Call of Duty is now going to forever be slop until they finally just fucking get back on their feet for like the foreseeable 9 years. But it's not like they care. They love that it's slop. They love that it's terrible because they can just hoard themselves out for it. Look, kiddos, jingle, 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 seizure-inducing movement. Ooh, oh, jingle, 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 jingle. Look at the movement. Look at the movement. You want to buy my trash skins? Jingle, jingle, jingle. Yeah, you do. You want to be just like me. Jingle, jingle, jingle. I don't groom minors. Jingle, jingle, jingle. Oh, grab mommy's credit card and buy the skin. Jingle, jingle, jingle. Don't worry, kid. If you go into my Twitch Whisper, I'll give you the skin for free. It'll be one of our many little secrets. Okay, maybe I've gone a little too far in some places. Look, to be fair, I'm not saying that it's all pro streamers' fault. It's just the big ones who say this kind of shit, and while constantly banging for Battle Royale in every single game they fucking play or else it won't survive, it's like, dude, is this the only thing on your mind? You did the same shit back with Halo Infinite. Like, are you going to say Zelda needs a Battle Royale too, or else Zelda's not going to survive? Does Plants vs. Zombies need a Battle Royale for it to be a game? The funny part is Battlefield 6 is going to have a Battle Royale, so can you just shut the fuck up already? You're getting what you want, and you're still whining. Not only that, but morons like, say, Face Swag, begging the game to have kill streaks because Call of Duty has it because he doesn't know anything else or play anything else, and saying the most moronic shit to defend himself. But you know what, Face Swag? We can agree on one thing.
Game will always be successful if you cater to every single audience. Battlefield shouldn't just cater to the 40-year-olds. I'm gonna be honest, bro. They shouldn't just cater to the casual dads. I'm gonna be honest. The way they...
Yes, Face Swag, this game shouldn't cater to 40-year-olds. Whatever the fuck that means in your mind anyways. It should cater to, drumroll, Battlefield fans. And that means not you. So adapt to the game as is, or go back to your fucking slop where you belong. Okay, look. I hate being negative about content creators that people like, but it's the reason I don't respect any of them. I'm sorry, I don't care how good you are at games. I don't care how many views you get. I don't care if you're better than me. I don't care how big or bad your wonderful your KD is. I don't care how many tie-in events you've done with whatever game. You are not entitled to change the game for your selfish needs and your desperate attempts to stay fucking relevant. And I urge DICE to ignore all of these selfish ravings of these comp Twitch streamers entirely. They have nothing of value to add, period. Whew. Alright, I think I said most of my piece. There are some other things I would like to quickly mention before I start wrapping up. Like the execution was a bit glitchy from time to time. The armors really need a buff too. Like, they weren't invincible like say in Delta Force where they could be a real big problem. But unless you have an engineer on them 24/7, they're just a tad bit too easy to overwhelm. And they would just constantly stay back in like spawn to try to hit you from a distance rather than rushing an objective because they know they would get overwhelmed. So I do think that's a bit of a problem. But I didn't really get to play with with the vehicles that much. I never got into the choppers or the jets, so I couldn't really comment on them, and I do apologize for that. I also don't have too much to say about the modes. They're all really good, don't get me wrong, but you know Conquest, Breakthrough, and Domination, Squad Deathmatch. You know what they are and how they play, so there wasn't too much to say about them. I will say that I noticed that a lot of veteran fans were really disappointed with Rush in Battlefield 6. I don't really know why. I thought it was fine, but I do hope that DICE can fix it to a place that will make the fans happy. But some smaller things that I noticed, the NATO's camo is just a tad bit too bright, and I don't know why. The US wears OCP camera patterns on their uniforms, which has like darker greens and browns to help blend in with the environment. And in Battlefield 6, the camos look just almost pure tan at times. And it could kind of stand out. I hope that they do make it a little bit darker so it could blend in with the environment a little bit more. I was going to add that I hope that they can add gore, seeing how chaotic and great this game can get. Like the idea of explosions going off and arms flying and just blood getting everywhere. But at the same time, that would really fuck up with the revive system, so I don't see that coming anytime soon. Another thing I would like to see is that they would add customization similar to what they did with Battlefield 5 or even 2042. And I mean that with how you customize, not like they add, you know, stupid skins. That's not my point. Like, I would like it where you could select different headgear or, you know, your different chest plates or pants and things like that. I think that would be really neat. Also, they should definitely add more gadgets and attachments, like claymores, or underbarrel grenade launchers, or mortars, you know, or you know, the things like that. I think that would be really cool. Yeah, I think that's about it. Overall, I think Battlefield 6 is extremely promising, and I am really excited to see what DICE has cooked up after their last blunder. And going back to Battlefield 2042, because they launched a free pass for free skins in Battlefield 6. You know, you play Battlefield 2042, you get free skins in Battlefield 6. Yeah, I'm suffering. I'm really missing the beta so much more. 2042 is so bad, but I'll get through it because Battlefield 6 is that good that I can suffer through 2042 for the good stuff. And I cannot wait to see the rest of the game. And you should expect a live stream of me playing Battlefield 6's campaign for the first time, and I'll try to beat it in one sitting. Oh, right, and usually when I do beta reviews of AAA games, I like to ask the question whether or not I think the beta is good enough for me to pre-order or buy the game. And well, I think you got your answer. It's that good. I said no pre-orders like everyone else, but what can I say? DICE got me. Thank you all so much for watching. This is probably the fastest I've finished any script, next to the Splitgate beta review, which Splitgate is relaunched and then went back to being a beta. I'm not reviewing that again. Anyways, I'm extremely excited. I have a lot of stuff in store. Besides suffering in 2042, I have a big Halloween special planned that I'm cooking up, where I have to play an old, forgotten horror franchise, and I am not good with horror games. I can't decide which one's worse, playing 2042 or all of the Slender games. Anyways, stay tuned for that. What did you all think about Battlefield 6's beta? Did I convince you to pre-order it immediately, or are you just not sold yet? Either way, please leave your opinion in the comments below. I'd love to hear about it. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you on the battlefield on October 10th.